Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Rafiki Broadcasting, a channel that brings you the truth. So the major talk that everybody is talking about around these hours from yesterday is about the meeting that Donald J. Trump and President Zelensky had at the White House. So this came at a follow-up a meeting that Donald Trump had with President Putin. And after that meeting, Zelensky was quick to accept, should I say, accept or request a meeting with the White House, which was accepted. And right after that, European leaders, oh my goodness. So this was unprecedented. So all European leaders decided to abandon everything that they were doing to follow Zelensky at the White House. This was something that, we've not seen before. So why did they all rush to the White House? They were afraid that the bulldozer will bulldoze again Zelensky as the last meeting. So they were afraid that that meeting could spiral, could go wrong once again. But this time around, I think President Trump really is trying to make a deal between Russia and Ukraine.
Frozen.
So we want to unpack what happened yesterday. Joining us is one of our political analysts, Dr. David Scratchley, all the way from Seattle. He is on the ground. He knows the vibe, the atmosphere on the ground. So, Dave, what is happening in the U.S.?
You bet. Thank you very much, Dr. Minko, and good evening to you. Good morning here in the States and the West Coast. Very important meeting yesterday, I believe. And let me begin by offering my compliments to President Trump. He has done some amazing things around foreign policy, not easy things to do, to step in the middle of conflicts around the globe. And he deserves a lot of credit for doing this. Not the least of which is what's happening in this terrible situation in the Ukraine. And, of course, when we look at the Ukraine, we have an interesting situation because you have, on one hand, a claim of sovereignty from Russia over especially Crimea, right? And on the other hand, you have a claim of sovereignty based on international borders by Ukraine. And you have Europe supporting, by and large, the Ukrainian position of sovereignty. But this applies, Dr. Minko, across the globe. There are many places in the world today where if we do not, in my opinion, uphold sovereignty of nations and instead look at whether or not a part of a nation speaks a similar language as a neighboring part, we descend into chaos. So rather than criticizing anything, let's say, that President Trump is doing, I wish to be somebody who could advise that particular topic in the sense that today we have a hard issue. And that hard issue is the Russian claim that the people of Crimea are more of Russian origin, right? And the Ukrainian claim that that is a sovereign state. And so what I would say to you is that is going to be the major question. I have a lot of thoughts on that. So that's one of the things I see here.
Okay, so that is an interesting question because, or should I say topic, because that land was, I think, invaded. Should I say invaded or seized? I don't know which is the right term. Invaded or seized, whatever term you decide to use, which is politically correct to you. But that was, I believe, is it 2014, right?
2014,
I believe,
yes.
2014.
2014.
2014. And that time, neither President Trump nor President Obama or President Biden were in office. So these two presidents inherit a problem that other their predecessor were involved in. And now they have to fix the problem caused by previous leaders. So I know the US, there is election every 4 years, and
Mm-hmm.
policies advanced by one president always end up affecting the coming administration. Please just give viewers a
Mm-hmm.
perspective on how the previous policies has affected both
Right.
Biden and
Mm-hmm.
President Trump.
Excellent point. And I want to make a point about the American political system. It's easy to look at it and say, gosh, every 4 years, America seems to do a somersault if we change leadership. But what's
Yes.
beautiful about that system is every 4 years, voters are allowed the opportunity to engage in a revolution without weapons, if you think about it,
Okay.
right? By electing a new leader in. And with that comes the very great difficulty that we see here. So, for example, if we go back to Biden, President Biden was extremely strong in his drive to defend the Ukraine at all costs. He was in for a penny and in for a pound, right? President Trump, and in no way being critical, he inherited a situation which is obviously very, very important. If you think about it, this has implications on a global scale. But let's just look in Europe for a moment. If we allow for a line of reasoning that says that if people speak my language, we can invade Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, all of these European nations could be at risk from Russia. But let's expand. You could have Hungary and Romania. You have conflicts in Africa, Rwanda and DRC, right? When we
Hmm.
use ethnicity as a guideline for what justifies a territorial invasion, right, we
Hmm.
risk descending into chaos on a global level.
Hmm.
China could claim even parts of Russia, even though they're allied right now. They could go to the Russian Far East or Kazakhstan or Mongolia, all of these
Yeah.
places. And here's something that would surprise people in America. People in Mexico could make a claim on many parts of Texas or California,
Exactly.
Arizona, New Mexico. So this is not a small topic. And surprisingly, remember this: I've worked quite a lot in Alaska in my life, and Alaska being our for the African listeners, if you get up into Africa, you have many communities where Russia may be spoken because of the fact that it was at one point a territory of Russia sold to the United States. Does that justify then the thought that those parcels of land actually are Russian? So when you
Hmm.
think about this on a global scale, we call this a Westphalian system. So what I would say is many of your listeners may be familiar with the Westphalian system, but it came about in, I think, 1648, and it ended a 30-year war in Europe. And in ending that, they decided the people at the time, Catholic Church, princes from Germany, representatives of Spain and the Netherlands, decided that sovereignty would be dictated by the rule of law, not by ethnicity. And you can
Okay.
apply this even today. Here's a touchy topic. Israel is sovereign. Even if you disagree with aspects of what's happening, they're defending by these principles a sovereign border. So these
Okay.
are critical pieces in the reasoning that I'm hoping is going on with our leaders today. Because from that standpoint, Crimea doesn't belong to Russia. It really belongs, despite the fact there are ethnic Russians there, it really is part of the territorial sovereignty of the Ukraine. So that is a perspective that may not always be popular, but I think without it, we risk descending into chaos because if we don't uphold this, Dr. Minko, we have no way of ruling by law. We rule by ethnicity. And as you and I know, if we just look north of where you're located right now, the terrible loss of life between Rwanda and DRC,
mm,
that has an ethnic side to it, right?
mm, mm. So, yeah, based on what you are saying, so that kind of signal the same challenges, or should I call it the constraint that Zelensky is
Yes.
signaling, because so given Zelensky constitutional limitation and public rejection of line concession, so how much real flexibility does Ukraine now has
Mhm.
in such negotiation?
Yes. It's a terribly hard position for the Ukraine, for Europe, and actually for the United States. And I think, again, the hard line that President Trump is taking is very, very good. He's trying to bring people to the table for peace. Excellent. Wonderful idea. From the European perspective, I'm almost certain that they're looking at the idea that if we allow for the invasion of territory based on ethnicity, all of their eastern flank could be open to what might be perceived in Russia as a
Yes.
justified form of incursion, right? So there is a very big stake in this, and that's why you see the leaders of Europe, Macron and others, going to the White House and backing Zelensky in this. Now, there are security alliances and other things that are at play here. You have um, Donald Trump coming in and saying, "Well, let us provide a NATO-like security bloc." That might be
Mm,
enough for Zelensky, or Zelensky might say, "No, we need to maintain our sovereignty," and it's yet to be seen. If you look at it from Putin's standpoint, the Crimean areas, there's seaports, there's other things that they want that they believe are necessary for their survival. One of the burdens that Russia has as a nation is that, unlike, let's say, the United States, which is bounded by many, many seaports, because we have the Atlantic, we have the Gulf, we have the Pacific Oceans, we have all sorts of seaports. Russia has many parts of its continent ice locked or landlocked. So when you look at the areas of Crimea and so forth, from their standpoint, they're looking at it, I'm sure, from a security standpoint or a shipping standpoint. So I understand. I do understand. But
so
yeah, go ahead.
So, so because I understand, for those that might be wondering why the fight over Crimea, I believe Russia has a base somewhere around that area, and
Yes.
that is that for it is very difficult to go by land, but it's easier to go through that port that you're talking about. So
Yes.
it makes the route quite easily accessible for the military and shipment and all the supply that the base need for its operation. So now, if you take that out of the equation, it means they have to go through land via a bridge, which is a much difficult and complicated route. But
Yes.
now, how or is there even possible that they can be a share of port? I'm just throwing things
Yes.
there, so, because so is there possibility that they can share a port?
I would like to think so. So you and I are friends, and I'd like to think if we had a common border or a driveway or a road into our home, I would be able to come to your house and say, "So, hey, can I use this?" And you would say, "Sure, we're friends, we're neighbors, a good thing."
Hmm.
You are exactly right that the sticking point here is the military bases and so forth that are found in Crimea. So, in my opinion, I'm not Russian, and I have many acquaintances who would tell me that the Crimean seaports are the most desirable in Russia, in their mind.
Okay.
The Ukrainian, it's Ukrainian land that's invaded, but they would see it if it was acquired by Russia legitimately, that would be a major boon for their shipping. Because if you look at maybe their five major seaports, four of them, at least in the past, have often spent much of the year ice locked, but that
Hmm.
port is not. And so that is one of the, I'm sure, the driving forces that has, that has been there. But
Mm.
nonetheless, we have to look at the idea that the claim, it's unfortunate that they don't have, more seaports, but that does not justify the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of innocent people. And
Mm.
so we're in a very tough situation here. I mean, I think we stand with Ukraine, and I'm certain that, in my opinion, I believe in wholeheartedly that Donald Trump stands with the Ukraine, right? But he's trying to figure out, well, what can we give? What can we take? So that maybe we walk away
Yeah.
from the table. Yes.
Yeah, because I believe it only makes sense, right? You and I believe. So when there is a negotiation, it means you bring something to the table to say, okay, so we're talking negotiation. Okay, this is what I'm bringing to the table. So what are you bringing to the table? So Russia is touting or is signaling agreement to some kind of security for Ukraine, things that they have not done before. So they've not said which format that security will take place. So is it from the US or is it from NATO? But I believe he probably doesn't like NATO involved in this whole mayhem. So
Right.
he doesn't like NATO to be involved. So I think from the Russian perspective, he is kind of signaling security from the US perspective, right? So I don't know whether it is because he trusts Trump more than he trusts the Macron and other guys. I have no idea. Maybe you are
Right.
there on the ground. Maybe you can give a
Right.
better perspective. Why is Russia more leaning towards the US than NATO?
Right. Oh, to me it makes, and the question is a great question. So let's begin with that.
Mm.
So why is it that Russia is leaning into the United States versus, let's say, the French bloc, the Germans, others who are standing sort of firm with this line? Because I believe they feel that they can communicate with Donald Trump better than they
Okay.
can with people who have their backs against that Russian border, you see, or are near enough the Russian border. So, I think this is the $1 million question, or maybe million is not enough. We're talking $1 billion question, right? Million is a long time ago. That's, when we were young. Okay. Billions of dollars and millions of lives are affected by these things. Now, when we look at this, we have to ask, is a security agreement based on a Russian overture enough for the French, the Polish, for the Germans, for others to relax? And my guess would be no. Okay, my guess, if you look at what's happening in these adjoining countries, they are preparing for war within the next 5 years as a result of the Ukrainian invasion.
Mm.
So the mindset of people in Europe is that within 5 years, Russia may very well be attacking them. And
Mm.
I think the complicating factor, and again, I understand it from an American perspective, of pulling back from NATO, something I don't agree with, but I understand it's costly and expensive. From that particular standpoint, I think Europe is asking, if we had to go it alone against Russia, what do we want to do? So you see in Finland, you see in Norway, you see across Northern Europe, people are arming with the idea of war is coming within the next 5 years. If you look at
Mm.
that mindset, you will probably see that there is very little chance that the European bloc is going to do anything other than say stand firm against Putin.
Okay. Yeah. So that's quite interesting. So I just want to uh, point out something something that first of all I found very interesting right at the forefront of this meeting. So it is the behavior, or should I say, the way both the Ukrainian and the US president um, went or prepared themselves for this meeting. So initially, So we know in the previous meeting really didn't it didn't go so well. So it didn't go so well for many reasons. So first of all, Trump complained that Zelensky did not respect either the decor or I don't know that
Yes.
he
The
came
Torah.
dressed like,
Yes.
yeah, the decorum. So he came
Yes.
dressed like some, I don't know. I'm not going to throw out names there,
Yes. A
but I'm
wartime
just,
leader. Yes. Yes. Very
yes.
offensive.
So he came out dressed very offensive, and that is something that Trump is very smart in the way he dressed,
Very
the way he
smart guy.
put himself. He's very smart. So I think those are small things that he find offense in. I didn't know
Right.
that he will make a big difference. That to say a president came dressed in a shirt, but surely it does make a big difference in the eyes of someone like Donald Trump. So
Right.
in the next meeting, so I think Zelensky did pay attention to that
He did.
to that complaint, and he came dressed a bit differently this time around. So
He
here's
did.
Zelensky. So the
Yes.
two presidents, the smile, you see the smile. He is wearing a shirt
Sure.
and a jacket, some form of a jacket,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
more formal compared to coming as a soccer player, or I don't know, or what do you say about just that initiative to say, okay, I want to make this work. Let me
Yes.
at least behave myself in a much respectful manner. Please
And I think
just
that's a fair criticism. Okay. Whether you like Donald Trump or not, he has risen to the leadership of this great nation. Whether you like Zelensky or not, he has risen to the leadership of Europe's largest nation, right? In
yeah,
a time of war, he's a wartime leader. He is very smart. Zelensky is a very smart man. He understands
yes,
people very
yes,
clearly. And he knew, I think, in those first meetings, he wanted to make that statement. This was his olive branch, his gesture towards peace. I'm not giving up my identity. You're asking me as a psychologist. I'm not going to give my identity up, but I am also going to acknowledge you are the president who is trying to save my people. Very good move. Very good move.
okay,
Okay.
okay,
Because you see,
that's good.
and I think it's very funny. Humans are very funny. If you have a table that's long and rectangular and somebody sits at the end of that table, right? That is a position of power. If you have a circular table, we're all equal. So, little symbolic things like that actually take on a lot of meaning. So I was so
Mm.
delighted to see that because
Okay,
he didn't give his identity up, but he acknowledged that the last time round he had made his road much rockier than it needed to be. Very fun.
from the psychologist's perspective,
Hmm.
this Zelensky coming from the car, Donald Trump is there, he's waiting. So, and Zelensky comes and he greet, they smile, he pat him on
Yes.
the shoulder. So I just
Very nice.
want to, because body, you're a psychologist, you understand body language better than anybody else. Please, what signal at this point does it give to Zelensky? Just that move from Donald Trump. What signal does it give to Zelensky going into this meeting?
Donald Trump is the most brilliant, if you will, politician I've ever seen around nonverbal sort of communication. He knows every impact that his statement would make. Do you see? He laughed a little bit, saying, okay, we've had this little spat last time around. Let's put it behind
Yes.
us. That's what we call a nonverbal tell. Okay,
Okay.
beautiful. It was off to a great start. That's my read. Now, do we
Okay.
still have lots of work to do? Absolutely. I think there's trust issues, not so much Zelensky and Trump, or maybe even Putin and Trump, but the American people and Putin, the Ukrainian people and Trump. I mean, these are big issues. Lives are being lost. And, just in my lifetime, if you had ever told me I would see a country attacking the nation of Russia with drones, I would have told you that could not have happened, right? But yet, this is happening continuously. So, this is very serious discussion. Yes.
So
Hmm.
when you look at this setup, it resembles almost a cliche of the previous meeting.
Yes. Yes.
Trump
It
this
did.
side, Zelensky that side, but now you see things change. The shirts change. Marco Rubio is there, and JD Vance is also there. So
Yeah.
you can see that it's almost the same thing. And interesting enough, as I was watching this, Zelensky, okay, there is a handshake,
There
all
it is.
right,
Yes.
all right, and then the two that showing kind of cordial
Mhm.
friendship behavior and talking to one another closely, so that shows mutual respect, kind of
Yes.
understanding each other. And yes, so please
So notice there.
just break this beginning to the viewers, just break this down. Even a letter,
Yeah,
he
no, I
shares a
see
letter, right? So just
things
break
are
this down
much
for the viewers.
much better. There's not guarded. You'll notice many points in the discussion they were paralleling each other's hand gestures, and those are genuine laughs. You can look at the smile on Donald Trump's face. Remember, from the psychologist perspective, when somebody is smiling involuntarily, their face is asymmetrical, right?
Yes,
Both of them,
yes.
if they force that smile, it's a symmetrical smile. He's really genuinely enjoying that discussion, in my opinion. Okay, they aren't
Okay,
guarded, they aren't blocking, they're open. This is a good view to me. This is great. And having Marco Rubio in the room, who's a very seasoned statesman, and the onlookers, I just have to say, when I watched this clip, which I did watch, um, I was actually very delighted because there was genuine levity in the room, and that's a gift. So that's a very
okay,
good thing. Yes,
okay. That's so.
I like that.
I'm just throwing things here. I'm not a psychologist, so he is the psychologist. He understands these topics, this behavior much better than me. I'm just
It's great.
so.
This is a
And
very
yes,
good thing. Hmm.
yes.
So,
So, and I hope you, the viewers, you will appreciate
yeah,
this talk. So now, same thing happened. So when Putin comes from, so he comes from his airport, his airplane, and
right.
he marched through the red carpet, and he
Yes,
comes and wait for Putin to arrive. So you can
yes,
see he doesn't show any sign of power play. He is
no,
not planning to power play. So he goes there with the willingness to embrace and accept Putin as he comes. Then, as Putin comes, he claps at him. I think he even shouted his name. I don't know. I couldn't hear what, but it seems like he did say something to Putin as Putin was coming on his side of the carpet. And then Putin comes, they shake each other. So always, so Trump has this habit when he wants to show power, so he drags your hand toward himself. He
yes,
doesn't do that. So he shakes Putin and he tapped his shoulder. They had a bit of chat, and then the two president, the two of them, then they march through the on the carpet where they meet the press. So you can see there is no difference between the way he welcomes Zelensky and the way he welcomed Putin. So he is playing a mediator, a complete neutral perspective that he's
yeah,
playing here. So
yeah.
he is not taking side of the Russia at this point, not taking side of the Ukrainian at this
Nice.
point. So please just break
No,
that down for us.
and this may surprise the listeners, but that is extremely important, your observation, right? Because remember, humans are very verbal, but they are also very capable of, at a nonverbal level, processing differences, right?
Mm,
And
mm,
so the greeting he gave to Putin in Anchorage, Alaska, suitably respectful. Okay. Now, there are Americans who would say he shouldn't have done that. Okay. He shouldn't have put that on the world stage.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, he's achieving peace. He's trying to achieve that. At the same time, he is advised by some very, very smart people because they said if you do not show that same neutral stance the same way to Zelensky, it's over with right there, okay? Because Zelensky will see that, or one of his people will see it. So very important. Now there were displays. The B-2 bomber went over
Oh,
the
yes.
meeting. Those were displays to say, "Look at me. I'm the president of the United States." Okay, and that's fine. That's a different showcase. But here, you can see that some genuine fondness has developed between these men that lifted my heart. Okay, I think it's very sincere, a very good thing. You know. But
All right.
yes, a very astute observation. You should become a psychologist. The fact that you saw that neutral piece was very good, very good.
Maybe I'll become a student of yours.
Yeah, I think this stuff is very fascinating. It can go
they,
on for
they,
hours. It can.
they say by association, isn't it?
Yes, it is very fun. Very good thing to do. Yes.
All right. So, yes. So you already spoke about it a bit earlier to say the reason why European leaders all rush to the White House is because of threat on their
Right.
territories. So, and also understand that Europe has also tried to kind of settle this, but they failed.
Yeah.
I can say they failed at various level, at various front. So
Hmm.
I think for them, it's also a plus for each of the leader if they
Absolutely.
are involved in the settlement of
Hmm.
this conflict, because it will be a plus for them, whether in the legislative, whether in the presidential, whether wherever it is. It is a plus to say I was involved in the settlement of this war
Yes.
between Ukraine and Russia. Please, what's
Hmm.
your take on that?
They have to be involved because if you really look at the war in Ukraine, the largest European country, it really is a harbinger of what could come to be. So they must be able to show both their people, the people whom they represent, also Russia. They can't solve this alone. We need to have this neutral third party. All they can do is put their shoulders to the back of the Ukraine and fight on, right? We must have sort of this grand meeting, whatever that forum is, and they must be at that table. If they are not at that table, then we will not have any capitulation or negotiation with Zelensky. That's his card. That's the card that he holds. Is the backing of the European Union, the backing of nation states that are feeling a threat also by the Ukrainian
Mm,
actions. Very important they were there.
Okay, let's talk about the security guarantee then, as we are
Yes.
on this topic. So, so with security guarantee being floated out there in lieu of NATO membership, to what extent could Ukraine accept long-term external assurance while maintaining its territorial integrity?
Right. Okay. So I think this, when we think of NATO membership, which Putin has always rejected strongly for all of the former states that were once associated with what we know to be the failed Soviet Union, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
that that is a huge piece that's a negotiating piece. Is it going to be NATO? Is it going to be some type of American security alliance outside of that? I think that that particular piece is probably an element that will need to be present if this is to be solved in anything other than a war that goes on for decades, possibly, or worse, right?
Mhm.
I will be gratified if he accepts, let's say, a NATO membership, or if Ukraine is able to enter into an alliance in some form or another. Um, it seems to me that one of the big issues is going to simply be, how do we trust the alliance to actually stop various attacks and what have you? Because there's histories of the Balkans and other things where we tried to step in with both muscle and force and tried to negotiate settlements that often didn't work as we wanted them to.
Now the question now is, how do you think the Russian will interpret Zelensky? Because I'm sure that he's not going to cede any territory. He's mentioned, he's signaled it, he's emphasized it, he said it clearly that he is not ready to cede or to let go of any territorial uh, uh, any land in Ukraine. So, how will Russia interpret that, and how will that make the mediation difficult for President Trump?
Well, it is difficult. And again, he takes on battles that I admire every day, because whether it's Rwanda, whether it's the issues in the Middle East, he nobody can argue the man does not have sort of the fortitude that's required to do this. He does.
Mm,
But the fact of the matter is that there's been a lot of loss on both sides. I would say that the
true.
largest issue in my mind is, what are the handlers of Putin, those people behind Putin, saying? Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are sons and daughters who have been lost in the hundreds of thousands in the Russian forces, the impact economically, the sanctioning of oil and other products. So I see the real key there not being on the Trump side, but on the oligarch side, the handlers, the people who feed information to Putin. If those people have
Yes.
reached the end and his secure state is in peril, we may see some significant negotiation.
All right. All right. So, yeah. So, for the sake of time, so I
Yes,
want to thank you always for
always.
very thoughtful and you always bring different aspects, a
Yeah,
different dimension
yeah.
to the dialogue, and that's why I always love having a dialogue with you,
Likewise.
because yes. So thank you very much for joining this news analysis, and to give our viewers that perspective, to give our viewers perhaps some of the things that other news outlets might not have spoken about. Is always a great pleasure. So thank you very much, Dr. Scratchley, and we will see you next time on one of the shows.
And I'm always honored. Thank you, Dr. Minko. We will see you in the next broadcast. Thank you.